Welcome to Alpha Wolf Capital. I'm Tim, and I want to personally thank you for stopping by. Between the OTC, New York Stock Exchange, and NASDAQ, there are over 22,000 companies traded publicly. I feel that small businesses are the backbone of America. This channel is designed to help small companies, both public and private, gain exposure with potential consumers, investors, even partners. Take, for example, today's guest. Neil Sweeney with Reklaim Inc. Reklaim aims to democratize data for consumers by providing them with an ecosystem where they can view, edit, opt out, or be compensated for the use of their data. Today, there is no destination for consumers to participate in the use of their data. And that is what Neil aims to change. But I'll let him tell you more about that in just a minute. It's important to understand that I do not collect compensation for the interviews I do here. The purpose of this channel is to find companies that have identified big problems and have found solutions to those problems. There's a thing called impact investing. It's tied to environmental, social, and governance. By helping a small company become a large corporation, if you and I can become ambassadors of a product because the values of that company align with our own, think of all the jobs that will be created as that small company becomes a big company. Think about the community that that company is in. Typically, they thrive along with the company. This channel is to help companies that are relatively unknown become known so that they can build a following and they can have brand ambassadors that share their vision, share their mission, and are willing to do what they can to help have a positive impact on humanity. That's what this channel is all about. This is my invitation to you to become a positive impact person. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not a financial advisor. I recommend highly that before buying any security, you speak to a financial advisor and do your own due diligence.
Okay.
Hey everybody, Tim from Alpha Wolf Capital coming at you with this is a long overdue follow-up interview. Went on a hiatus for a little bit, but I happened to run across Neil Sweeney doing a little presentation somewhere else, and it jarred me because I've been trying and I've been planning on getting them back on, and that this time I followed through. Neil from Reklaim is here to give us an update on what's been happening. Probably one of the smartest guys out there in terms of what's happening in the privacy world in the internet. So, Neil, thanks for coming back and giving us an update on what's happening, man.
It's nice to be back as part of the Wolf Pack here. So I'm excited to chat to you as always. So let's do it.
All right, man. So for those that are watching that didn't see our previous interviews, just give the viewers a snapshot of what Reklaim is, what Reklaim does.
Yeah, so I mean, I think for the average consumer, it's a really easy premise to get your head wrapped around. I think what I'm obviously biased on this, but what I like about it is you can be a participant in Reklaim as well as an investor in Reklaim. And you can see how the product kind of iterates over time. But at the core, the philosophy around Reklaim was this was created in my last business, which was also a public company. But the premise was that you have this $700+ billion data market today. Operating, there's about 8 billion consumers on the planet today. Every single one of them has a data profile, including anybody who's watching this video today. I think anybody who's watching this video today can also likely appreciate that they know their data is being collected, but they don't know by whom. They also don't know how it's being used. And they definitely can appreciate that certain platforms or companies are using this data as a free input to generate millions or even billions of dollars, #AI. Anyway, I think the point with this is that, the idea is that Reklaim was really created to try to give consumers a seat at the table as it relates to their data, to give them the optionality to view the data that is circulating in the market today, and then allow them to pick and choose who they're going to allow to use it. And if a brand, a company, or a platform decides to use this data, you as a consumer receive a royalty in the form of cash or crypto, and you can have it deposited automatically into your wallet. So we feel that we're really the only company in the world, both public or private, that's doing it. This company's now been around for 6 years. It's a real business. We have real clients, real money, real revenue, so on and so forth. So, I think this isn't a concept. This is a real company that's growing. We grew 80% last year. We're going to grow 30 to 50% this year. So, yeah, so I'll pause there because I'm sure, Tim, you've got other questions that you want to ask sort of specifically around the product and what we're doing.
So let's talk about the fact that, yes, it's growing. Are you profitable?
We are profitable. So let's just give everybody kind of a couple of the top level metrics because they're going to want to know this stuff. So yeah, we're profitable. In 2023, we went from losing probably $4 or $5 million in 2022 to making $1 million approximately in 2023. So a $5 to $6 million swing, 80% margin, 90% reoccurring revenue, positive cash flow. Fast forward to 2024, you're going to grow kind of 30 to 50%, 80% margin, expanding positive cash flow, EBITDA positive, net profit positive, all good. Couple of things that we'll get into more specifically is there's been a lot of catalysts in the market. We should probably talk about how those are moving the industry, which in turn has a direct benefit to Reklaim. But I think, look, if you're interested in this space and you believe that the data world is iterating, kind of looking at where Reklaim is obviously a good starting point. But we don't think that this market is going backwards as it relates to data, security, and privacy. That's for sure. So there's a lot of upside available to us here moving forward.
So when we talk about data, I believe this was quite a while ago, data became the #1 commodity in the world, right? Surpassing oil. So I don't think we're going backwards either. I think we're going to just continue moving in that direction. Internet of things, all these things that I don't know. Is it just me or am I the only one that talks about something and then the next thing I know, it shows up on my computer? I just don't know how that happens really, but I know I'm not supposed to have anything listening to me, but something must be listening to me because it's just the oddest thing, right?
Yeah, we don't have to get into kind of the construction of the OEMs, and the short answer is everything is listening to you always, period. When you look at your handset today, if you have an iPhone, in the old days, we used to be able to remove the battery. You can no longer remove the battery. And if you can't remove the battery, it is transmitting, period. Now, it might not be transmitting kind of in the way that the everyday consumer thinks it's transmitting, but it's transmitting. So that's done on purpose. The reality is that there's kind of no way to shut that off. Now, I think, you can get freaked out about where the world of data is going. I think the reality is that data, when used properly, is a good thing. And I think when you look at the market today, there's this hysteria around AI. AI is kind of in sort of these two worlds. You have those that are fixated on chips, and then you have those that are sort of fixated on productivity and models. I think, when you look at kind of where the data market was, is, and is going, if you look historically, it's social media. So those were walled gardens collecting data on consumers and selling that data to brands and agencies, think Facebook, so on and so forth. Then you look at where we are today, and there's sort of this change happening in the market where privacy and regulators are starting to get wise to that and they're changing rules. But then simultaneous to that, if you look to the future, everybody believes that AI is going to solve every problem in the world. This is the part that everybody forgets. In order for AI to be effective, it needs to train. What does it train on? Data. Whose data? Your data. AI is on a massive, massive collision course with privacy in much the same way that the social networks were on a collision course with privacy. So that's, to me, where I sort of think that the opportunity exists going forward is that, you as a consumer having some control and optionality around your data allows you to participate in a variety of things. But I think as you get into the future, is it possible that consumers could be sharing their data to actually to individual companies to help them train internal AI models? I think that's almost inevitable. And so the question then becomes, who are the companies that are going to allow you to do that? Right now, it's companies like Reddit, the New York Times, and others who are like selling all the data in the back end, but they're selling all the consumer data. So anyway, there's lots to talk about as it relates to that for sure.
So, AI, we were just talking about AI, and you and I were kind of talking about AI before we hopped on. I mean, you don't see AI as a bad thing. You see AI as a good thing, and actually, you're building something out that could actually help with what you already have established.
Yeah, I think there's I have my own kind of personal belief as it relates to AI. So first of all, I think if you're a CEO and you don't have AI at the DNA, at the core DNA of your company, you're going to be in trouble going forward. So every CEO and every company, including Reklaim, has to have they need to be thinking about how are we putting AI into our business to drive kind of the future. And what I mean by this is, yeah, I think that there's a lot of this fixation on, AI is going to take away all these jobs as a productivity tool. If you read, and I'd encourage any of the listeners to read my CEO letter. I probably write the most extensive CEO letter every quarter in the industry. It's like 8 pages long, but it gives a lot of industry information sort of specifically as to what's going on. I think as it relates to AI, to me, this isn't about chips and it's not about kind of productivity. It's actually more about, can you develop real consumer facing products that generate real revenue as opposed to just, improving, your operational rigor by 30%. For us, our whole kind of Q2, Q3 roadmap from an engineering perspective is all invested in AI. And, what becomes interesting to me is, you have a standalone application like Reklaim that's allowing consumers this transparency on their data. And just again, for background, you come to Reklaim, you put in an email address or a phone number, we verify you are who you say you are. Once we do that, we show you all the data that is currently circulating on you online. We allow you to reclaim it into an identity wallet that is controlled by you, in which case you can then add to it, edit it, or you can option it directly to an individual brand. That's kind of the core of the consumer face of the product. What I look at that is, what are the kind of the components here that can be powered by AI, which can be stripped out to be put into large language models, et cetera. For us, we've got in beta, you can actually go to ai.reclaimyours.com now and actually try this out. But what we identified in the market was that there's some gaps here as it relates specifically to kind of remediation post security or privacy breach. And so everybody, and I can assure you, everybody's been involved in a privacy or a data breach, whether that's T-Mobile, Ticketmaster, AT&T, et cetera.
Hey there, folks. I want to tell you about a new app that I am very excited about. If you want to up your investing game with Wall Street wisdom, stay informed, save time, and gain an edge, then you're going to want to check out this app, STOCKPICK. You can discover pro tips from top investors and expert curated financial news, all in quick video short form clips. I've been using this app and I got to tell you, I love it. I am extremely impressed with the quality of the content. It keeps me informed, and I have to tell you, I've used all kinds of comparable services out there. This one is priced at $79 US. It is a steal of a deal. And right now, on top of that, you can get an additional 25% off. I'm telling you, folks, I think you're going to love this app. Go to the description of this video and find the link. Make sure you use my code to get that 25% off.
The flaw that we saw in the market here was that the companies will pay fines associated to that. But what's lost in the shuffle here is that data that was leaked basically is the foundation for kind of phishing and fraud, which powers the dark web going forward. What are the tools that are available to you, Tim, as an individual to solve that problem? Who do you ask? Who do you talk to? How do you change your password, get entered into a class action, receive remuneration for the class action, do a security check on your products? Our product, which we built on top of Facebook's Llama 3 model, really kind of is a large language model. Because it's a large language model, it's inherently patient. You can ask it as many questions as you'd like. You can ask it as many questions as you like, and it will really, it will say, okay, there's a Ticketmaster breach. Would you like us to see if you're in it? Yes, please. Okay, we looked, you're in it. Would you like us to change your password? Yes, please. Would you like us to do a security audit on, your device? Sure. Would you like us to check to see if there's a class action? Yes, please. Would you like us to enroll you in this class action? Yes. Would you like us to keep you informed as to how this class action kind of goes forward? So you can get a sense of like the questions that I ask versus the questions that you ask are infinitely different. And so I think what's really important is we have this data on the consumer sitting inside of Reklaim, as opposed to just using it specifically for compensation. You now have the ability to use that same data from a security and a reconciliation point of view. And we think that that's, really, really important and interesting.
Absolutely. So there's a couple of things that I think I want to reiterate. This is a profitable company. This is not a fluff company. This is not a smoke and mirrors company. This is a real deal, right? And up here on my screen, there's a QR code that'll take you right to Reklaim and the product. I guess here's what I would suggest. Check out the product, and if you are happy or impressed with what they are able to do for you in a pretty simplistic manner, then it almost, I don't think the need for this is going to go away. Do you, Neil?
No, and I think, you can go to the URL here, the investors at Reklaim yours, to get any more information. Watch, you can read the letter that I posted. You can watch other interviews to get, better handle on what we're doing. I think that this happens all the time. And people think, oh, when privacy actually takes place. Like the reality is, and nobody wants to talk about privacy because it's inherently boring. But, the important piece is that, half a dozen years ago, there was a fundamental change in European privacy policy. The United States and North America in general had a very arrogant approach to that. They're like, that's Europe. It doesn't impact us. We literally were kind of launched the first version of that product then because we knew that it was inevitable that legislation in some form or fashion was going to come to the United States. It did. Naturally, it started in California, not surprisingly. But if you fast forward kind of like 12 to 16 months, you've gone from one state changing their privacy policy where they are forcing you to include consumer inclusion, get explicit consent from consumers to use their data. It's gone from one state to 18 in a year and a half. So this train is left the station. It is moving and it is picking up speed. And as a consequence, you're seeing it happen. Like there's things that are manifesting in your device that are protecting privacy. There's state level privacy that's happening. So it's kind of all around you. People just don't really see it. And I think, it's kind of one of those things where it's almost like a tsunami. It's underneath the surface of the water until it then crests instantaneously into like a 30-foot wave. But, ultimately, privacy is not going backwards, and this idea that you have a $700 billion market, which has no consumer inclusion, with all this inflection of privacy, this $700 billion market needs to transition to one with consumer inclusion. Who are the companies that are going to, service that and benefit from that? I don't think we're the only one, but we definitely stand to, benefit from that transition for sure.
I would say you have a good head start, right?
Well, look, I think what we see a lot of the time is that this notion of you should get paid for your data. I've heard this from 500 people. I had that idea. I'm like, okay, great. Like this idea that yes, you should get paid for your data. I can assure you that very kind of linear statement is incredibly hard to actually put into operation. When you look at who we operate with, we work with General Motors, we work with Microsoft, we work with UPS, we work with, Unilever. These are huge brands that are buying data from Reklaim. And the model of Reklaim is that we're facilitating the transaction between a consumer and a buyer. And so we don't own the data, the consumer owns the data. And this is an important piece because if you want a comparative, it'd be, I'm renting your house from you, Tim, off of Airbnb. Airbnb is facilitating that transaction, but you and I are actually doing the deal. We are kind of the Airbnb of data. We don't own the data. We facilitate the transaction, increasingly more so amongst more brands and more consumers. And that's how we make money. We make money by that every transaction that takes place, we get a percentage. So if you believe that this is going to continue, then inherently you believe that the sale is going to continue. And if the sale is going to continue and increase, then you believe that we're going to be able to take a bigger and bigger or more clips on each of those individual transactions, which manifests in a larger revenue line. So this isn't going backwards. There's no way. It's
For those that don't know, this isn't your first rodeo of running a publicly traded company.
No, I am clearly a masochist here. So, and I haven't learned my lesson of quitting when things are good. But like, so I think, you know, that Reklaim was founded inside of Freckle. Freckle was a publicly traded company. Freckle was actually incubated inside of my last company, which was a private company called Juice Mobile. Juice Mobile was incubated inside of the last company. So like, there's a kind of a Russian doll or Ukrainian doll thing that happens here where we're pretty good at sort of seeing where the future is going. We stick a shovel in the ground, we build the nascent technology, we scale it, we commercialize it. And then usually a bigger player that kind of wants the innovation kind of comes and picks it off. All of those businesses have been sold, by the way. So this is the biggest idea, though, that I've had. And I think it's primarily because, you know, when you're starting a business, you think about, well, what's the potential here? Well, you have 8 billion consumers and you have a $700 billion, data market, all in transition. This is a monster if you can figure it out. Not easy to figure out. We've been doing it for 6 years. The first 3 years were expensive. Those are past. Now it's about how are we growing the revenue, making more money, scaling the business, you know, getting more awareness. So it's taken us a kind of a while to get here, but we're on the profitable side of the ledger, which is nice. So we're in control of our own destiny. It's also important to note that I'm the single largest investor. So I take that seriously. So things like dilution, et cetera, these are all things that resonate with me. So, you know, if you're in this stock, you're in it with me. I stand to benefit more than anybody, but I stand to lose more than anybody. So you should take some comfort in that. I'm not going to be making a bunch of flippant decisions which are not in the best interest of investors because I'm the number one investor in it.
So I think that is extremely important. I think the other thing that is extremely important to recognize here is that this is, I would say, the infancy stage of this. You have new products and services that you're working on, but the hard work has really been done, right? AI coming along is almost like a gift. I would think for you, you got to be chomping your bits a little bit, right? Because it's like AI is.
Well, I think what's good about it is that it kind of gets us into our sweet spot. I mean, kind of going back on the historical pieces that, you know, we're good at the innovation. We're really good at the innovation. So when there's new things like AI coming into the space, it forces us to start thinking about how that is impacting our business and where the industry is going. You know, our ability to kind of take something like that and integrate it into our business to give us more torque. I think we're better suited to do that than other companies who, you know, are maybe don't have as much history in kind of building technology or innovating in technology or working in different spaces, or are simply just too big and they can't do it. We're small enough, nimble enough, fast enough, and we've got enough experience here where we have the ability to integrate and move faster than other guys. And, you know, candidly, that's the part of the business that I like. Like, it's the innovation part of the equation is to like where the market's going, you know, being in front of the market, sort of seeing the trend in the market and then having that trend manifest into like real habit. That's the juice. That's the juice. It's not like, that's what really kind of makes things kind of really exciting when you're running a business. It's not the day-to-day. It's how you're evolving and growing into these businesses. That's the part that, I mean, clearly that's why I keep doing it. That's the part that I definitely have kind of an addiction to, for sure.
Yeah, and been successful at it repeatedly. So, I mean, that's the other thing I want to kind of hammer home. This is not a one-off, right? This is something that Neil has done over and over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, look, we make our mistakes just like everybody else, for sure. I think we're pretty good about acknowledging those mistakes and then, you know, getting on to the next thing. The tough part in any business is, you know, getting to that, you know, that getting that revenue line moving, getting to a profitable line, because you might have a good idea, but if it doesn't have a business model underneath it, it's not really worth anything. If you have a good idea with a business model underneath it that happens to be profitable, you're cooking with gas, right? So now all of a sudden, this isn't just Neil's new idea. This is a real idea with Fortune 500 brands, with real consumers interacting with it every day. Awesome. So the validation part of it is done. If we weren't going to make it, we'd be gone. Now it's about how do we ladder up here and how do we kind of get to the next level? And as I said before, I think, we've been focused on building the business. We need to increase the visibility on the business and, candidly, I'd say the equity here, because we think that there's a ton of other opportunities available to us down the road as well.
Is there, bringing that up, we've been in a cycle that's been pretty rough for the last, I want to say 38 months or so. Do you see opportunity out there for maybe some of the companies that had a great idea but didn't have the financial backing or the ability to continue forward, where that you might be accretive? Or
Yeah,
you could,
they're all over the place. So, there's a couple of different themes that, there's a bunch of businesses that we've sort of noticed specifically in our industry that have undifferentiated technology, and as a consequence have had to accelerate to kind of profitability, but don't really have a ton of, optionality after that. They're not going to get any more money and there's no real exit for them. There's an opportunity to roll those types of companies into Reklaim to, kind of to grow the revenue at a faster rate. And like they'd be immediately accretive because, they're profitable companies and they just allow us to accelerate. We looked at this, also on the data broker side. So historically, and I think the important part to remember here, when I always reference this, this $700 billion data market, amalgamating data unbeknownst to you as the consumer. Important to remember is that there was nothing illegal about doing that in the past. You were allowed to do that. And I would argue that, while it was the Wild West, the Wild West did create a $700 billion data market. And without that $700 billion data market, you're not having this conversation today around AI. You're not. So, I think what's happening now is that, the rules are actually changing, but there's a lot of these companies who, as a byproduct of some of the changes in the market, specifically around privacy, because they don't have an ability to communicate with consumers and manage specifically opt-in and opt-out, they're inherently becoming kind of pools of liability. And so, in California, there's 3,000 data brokers doing tens of billions of dollars in sales a year. None of them have ever communicated with any consumer that hosts their data. All of those companies are going to go to zero. All of them, zero. And so where does all that money go? Again, if Oracle was probably the biggest data broker in the United States. They had $1 billion data business. They walked it 3 months ago. Just shut it down. Now they can do that because they're Oracle and they're a monster, but they walked this business that was at one point doing $1 billion. Now it came out after that they had, something like a $250 million class action lawsuit against them for privacy issues. And so somebody internally said, this isn't worth it to us. So if Oracle, the biggest data broker in the market, walks a $1 billion business, what are the 3,000 data brokers in California going to do? So there's a ton of opportunity there. And so, I think for us, like, we don't have that optionality right now because unless the stock cooperates, the stock can't help me on M&A. And unless the stock doesn't cooperate, the stock doesn't help me on capital raising. Now that's fine because we have free cash flow and the free cash flow is expanding. And as the free cash flow expands, I can reinvest it into the business to grow the business. But for me to really start to take advantage of some of those opportunities that I see tons of, we need things like the stock and others to cooperate with us, because otherwise taking these companies in just becomes too dilutive and it's not the right allocation of time and capital. So the stock was higher. We had a higher market cap. Could we go and pick off some of these companies to kind of allow us to go faster? Yes, I'd love that. But that's not a reality for me for at the moment. It will be at some point. So I continue to just keep my powder dry and wait for that to happen. And when things line up, I'll be all over it.
I have no doubt about that. let's give everybody so let's talk about the balance sheet. Let's talk about how many shares outstanding, fully diluted, the whole deal.
Yeah, 116 fully diluted. It's a pretty tight structure. So 35% on the insider. So 35% on the insider of 116. There's probably 3 or 4 groups that own kind of the 9.9%. So you can get stock. So it's not one of these stocks where you can't get any, but it's also not one of these stocks where there's 700 million shares traded. So it's pretty tight. We have 24 million warrants outstanding right now that expire in June. They're all at 10 cents in Canadian on the TSX. So the stock's kind of there now. So if those roll in, you have probably $2+ million in cash on top of a profitable company that's making money with free cash flow. Now it has, an additional $2 million. That helps. And if they don't, then they'll just roll off kind of the cap table. Yeah, so the structure of the company is it's getting better and better and better. I think the company's probably never been in a better spot than it is right now. And I think if you ask me 6 months from now, it'll be in a better spot even 6 months from now. And we just seem to be trucking along here and improving everything that we're doing.
Is there anything that you see, Neil, in the next 6 to 12 that would be potentially a catalyst?
Yeah, I think for us, there's a handful of things. As I explained before, we think that this transition of state level privacy in the U.S. is going to continue. So, having gone from 1 state to 18, we're going to go from 18 to 30. That means more companies who've historically used data have to come into the market to find new partners. That's a huge catalyst for us. Eventually, the entire market of the U.S. will be consumer included, which will force any single company, brand, or platform that's buying data to find a new partner. Reklaim stands to benefit from that. So we're investing in the team right now. All the capital going into the business is growth capital. So we continue to invest in the sales team. The sales team is responsible for bringing in, the General Motors, the UPSs of the world. Those businesses, there's really no shortage of revenue that, those businesses can generate for us. So I'd say, the inflection of privacy is definitely a big one. We think that larger theme of data breach and security is another catalyst for us. As mentioned, we have an alpha in market today. The beta will come out in a couple weeks, but it'll be publicly launched. That's a SaaS-based product for us. It's a monthly recurring subscription. So it's a new revenue model to go alongside our existing revenue model that's growing kind of 30 to 50% a year. We think that mainlines directly into that trend of AI and security. It doesn't hurt that it's actually built on kind of some of the most progressive AI tools in the place. As I mentioned, like we built this on Llama 3, which is Facebook's large language model, and we use the inference engine Grok as part of the core. So, I think if you're doing a list of some of the most progressive companies in the space, we're building.
Grok is Elon Musk, right? That's right.
That's one of them. This one is a different one. It's sort of more of an inference engine, but they'll get confused. I think the idea with that is we've built some IP specifically around the questions that individuals are asking the large language model to make them more personalized and accurate. And yeah, I think what I like about that is that you have a new product that's SaaS based in nature that is, on top of the most progressive stuff in the space to complement what you've been already doing for the last 3 or 4 years. These are ways in which, we always start every year thinking, okay, if we want to grow 100%, what do we got to change? And so I'm kind of already into 2025, to be honest. So if I want to grow 100% in 2025, I can't just roll the same team and the same product in the same position. That doesn't work. So I have to invest in guys now in 24 so that they're trained up so that when they hit January 1st, they can contribute for the entire fiscal year. Similarly, for me, it's like, well, if I want to have a new product that's going to generate new revenue, I've got to build it now. And it's built We stood it up. It's going to be launched. It'll be international, by the way. That's another thing which I think is super sexy about it, is that Reklaim is Canada and US only. We're going to launch this AI bot really anywhere around the world. We think that that's super interesting. So, our expectation is that that's going to drive a revenue line for us in 25. And then, we did some other stuff, which is not nearly as sexy, but our product where we sell data to a brand to then activate, to use in an activation in, say, a Facebook or in like the Trade Desk on a programmatic campaign, we've extended that to search. And so anybody can use Reklaim data to power their search campaigns. Search is probably the #1 vertical that every brand uses when they enter kind of the marketing mix. It goes search, then social, then programmatic. So we have our data available in all three of those verticals, distributed evenly across the biggest platforms in the space. We've got a lot of torque here to really kind of pop. But we're a small team, so we have to be super, super diligent about where are we spending our time, where are we spending our energy, where are we spending our emotion? Because if we spend it here, we can't spend it here. So, that's the one thing about being a small company, is you have to have really good discipline about your allocation of time, money, and capital. You get that right, you get enormous torque, but you can't really afford to kind of waste any of it because you don't have unlimited resources. So I think we're pretty good at that.
So let me ask you, how does Reklaim make money? Is this a subscription for the person that comes in and wants to sign up and take part in being able to manage who has their data?
Yeah, so on the Reklaim side of the equation, it's a free product. We get paid by the brand who you select to actually use your data. So simplistically, if General Motors was going to buy, Tim's data, Tim pays us. General Motors facilitates the payment through us, and we take a percentage of that sale, just in the same way that an Airbnb or an Uber would. And then if General Motors decides to buy Neil's data, same thing. Neil's data goes to General Motors. Reklaim takes a percentage associated to that. So it's a very asset-light model as it relates to how we run. And so it's really, our revenue model is dependent upon the amount of data that is transacting in the platform. And if more data is transacting in the platform, we make more money because we take a percentage on every piece of data that's actually transacted. So very simple model for people to understand.
Okay, so there is no user, there's no fee to the person that's signing up?
No fee for the person signing up for Reklaim, no. And on the AI bot, which is sort of the new product, that product will be a $1 a month subscription. That's the SaaS model. But the product that has been operating for the last 5+ years, there's no cost associated to that. The ancillary product, which is the privacy assistant, if you want to sign up for that, that will cost you $1 a month.
A whole $1.
All about gaining market share first, Tim, and then you can increase the price. People get cute with price, and then they forget. It's like, it's not about price, it's about market share. You want to get market share and velocity. Once you get market share and velocity, you can change the price if you want to, but there's no point in charging something $5 or $10 when you have nobody in the product. You got to get people in the product, and then you can kind of iterate from there. So there's an incentive to get people in early because it's inexpensive, but the price will go up over time. But
so let me get this.
October.
If I go scrape the couch for 4 quarters, right? I've got a month of privacy. I've got a month of privacy protection, right? And then I also have. Hold on one second. I'm in the middle of a meeting. I'm gonna have to call you back. Bye. So you scrape the couch 4 quarters, but then if you do this and you realize this is a pretty cool technology, I think this thing could definitely get some legs. Then you go scrape I don't know, maybe the love seat for another couple of bucks, and then you what?
You're convincing me it's too cheap. You're convincing me now it's too cheap, and I should increase the price. So
you can go buy the stock with the money that I got out of the love seat, right? Because that's even cheaper than the service at this particular point in time.
Yeah, the plan is to increase the stock at a much faster rate than it would be to increase the price of the subscription. Put it that way. I think so. Yeah. The stock's too cheap for sure. I can't control that though, but we hope that as we continue to execute on our plan, that the stock, the one thing I have this belief that, obviously investors have this, uncanny ability to find value. So if you keep executing, you keep making money, keep, maintaining good margin and growing your book of business, investors will find you. I mean, that's kind of the whole, that's the whole part about investing.
Be transparent, those kinds of things.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah, eventually they find you. And I mean, right now, the way I view Reclaim, and if the ticker symbol is MYID, MYIDF in on the OTC. Any thoughts eventually, Neil, that you would wind up maybe, if the things really start to pick up and people recognize the value and the service continues to take off and the additions that come on board even accelerate that. At some point, can you see uplisting to a senior exchange?
Yes, for sure. I don't want to be down here forever. That's for sure. Like my plan is to not be a small cap forever. You got to start somewhere. The plan is to absolutely kind of move on the board. We'd love to be on NASDAQ. We know what kind of comes with that. We're just too small right now to do it. So we keep doing what we think we're going to do. Then at some point or another, we'll be ready for that. But that's the goal, 100%. I don't really have any aspirations to, I see guys like, oh, we're going to go like list on Frankfurt. I'm like, that's not, I want to be on the NASDAQ. Like that's the arena that all the big boys are in. I want in. That's where I want into that. I want to get in that arena. That's where we want to go. But right now, I mean, that's in the future. Right now, we've got work to do here. And if we continue to do what we're going to do, we'll have the opportunity to do that in the future.
And I agree with that. And I realize, look, I'm certainly not trying to suggest you want to try and go uplist to the NASDAQ right this moment, because, look, that just creates a whole, some companies will do that thinking that that's going to resolve everything, all the challenges with the stock, but that actually just winds up magnifying things and making it even more challenging, unless you have things that, I always say the company should be on absolute fire. Everything's firing on all cylinders. There is no sign of any chance of a reversal, and you can see clearly where the company is going, right? Because if you uplist to the NASDAQ and you miss one quarter, they might let you go on that, but you miss 2 quarters, you're going to have a lot of problems. So I know, Neil, you're a very patient and methodical guy. Would that be an accurate statement? Yeah.
I don't know if I'm patient. I'm definitely methodical, but I'm not patient. So like I always joke is that I might be emotional, but I'm not irrational. So like that's kind of how I always sort of like I'm like I have a passion for wanting to do things and I like things moving for sure, but I'm not irrational in that I will rush into a decision just for the sake of doing it. So that's that. I think I have emotion, but I'm not irrational. I think that's probably how I see it.
Yeah. All right. So listen, if anybody, first, like I said, if you're interested, go check out the app, sign up, and then go to the love seat, scrape together some, even if you just, I'm not telling anybody what to buy or what to sell. That's not what I do. However, if you think the story makes sense, this would be, I think, an excellent place to, I'm going to move this for a second. I'm going to move your logo, and I'm going to move the, where the heck is it? You can get this out of the way so we can take a look at the chart real quick. Move this. Yes, there we go. Okay, got to get that out of the way, and we're going to move this. So we're talking about a stock that right now is sitting at, hold on. This is the OTC, so you're sitting at 0.0675 cents, right? And if you look at the chart, it's kind of been just going sideways now for between 2 cents and 6 cents for actually no, you had a little pop. What was this all about, Neil? Back in what was that? The February 24th.
That would have been our first quarter of profitability.
Ah, okay. Had a nice little pop there. I mean, got up to 16.
Is that the year end? What's that line there?
Which one?
That's okay. That's February. What's the next one over?
Oh, this one here? That was April 9th
Of this year?
of this year, yeah.
So again, that's like probably around the quarter. So like there's a trend. It's like it kind of runs up at the quarter, and then we're not inherently that promotional. It sort of drifts back, and then it resets at the end of the quarter. So our Q3 number comes out probably the first week of November.
Okay, so this is what I would say, and this is where it gets pretty interesting, actually, from a technical standpoint. Let me see. I want to draw this line. Come on, draw it. Oh, it's not drawn. All right, well, that's fine. If I'm looking at an area of potential resistance, and why do I call it that? It's because it keeps coming up into this 10-cent range. It tries to break through, and then it winds up pulling back, and it's just going sideways between 5 and 10 cents. And eventually, what's going to wind up happening is when it does break through 10, and that becomes the floor as opposed to being the resistance, the ceiling, that will be the beginning of a new trend, which, the old trend was from the upper left to the lower right. Now you've got a base, a consolidation base that has been building out since, let's see, mid 2022. So that's been building a base sideways. When you're building a base like that, I like to call it a platform because it's a launching platform. The wider the base, the higher the space eventually. And you're not talking about a company that's talking about being profitable. You're talking about a company that is profitable and is going to continue down that path. So, taking a starter position here just to make sure, what's buying 100 shares or 1,000 shares, whatever, just to keep it on your radar. This is, and that's typically what I do is get a starter position just so I pay attention to what's happening with the company, right? And as people become more and more people become customers of this thing. I mean, how many people are there well, how big is the TAM on this potentially?
I mean, again, you're a $700 billion market with 8 billion consumers in it. The total addressable market is 8 billion consumers and 700 billion.
So, what's your market cap right now?
Yeah, like less than 10 million.
Right?
Yeah.
So,
look, this is a small cap that makes money at 80% margin and is growing with free cash flow. So, into a $700 billion, 8 billion person market.
Now, look, Neil has a habit of being early. When you find a company that is early, it's hard as an investor to be patient. You have to be, because you find it early, and your volume. I'm looking at the volume traded today. It's 1,000 shares. That's light volume. So you're not going to have a difficult time buying into it. What you could have a difficult time doing is selling out of it, right? That's right now. That's not, if this thing continues to build, that will change. Just understand that every company at some point was a small company. Every company at some point was a small company. And it takes time to build into a large corporation. But I think the company is doing the right thing, right? I think you're helping the consumer, helping to protect the consumer, you're helping the consumer to get paid if there's a breach. I mean, there's a lot of things that you are doing that is good for the consumer. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're democratizing data. We're giving the consumer a seat at the chair, at the table. Like I think we're the only company that's doing that. And as a consumer, your choices are, you can participate in Reklaim and have some optionality or with your data, or you can not participate in Reklaim, in which you're basically being complicit in allowing everybody to amalgamate and use your data without your kind of consent. It just doesn't seem logical. So, I just feel like, again, as the momentum builds and people's data gets hacked and people are looking for a platform where they have more kind of control and optionality. And, the opportunities are endless. I mean, sure, you can receive compensation for your data, but that does not preclude you from gaining access to something like a paywall. It does not preclude you from like getting, points, loyalty, VIP, validating identity. There's so many different things that can happen with you being in control of your data. Data is, you think about, kind of data, and you think about kind of your wallet today. What's in your wallet? Well, a credit card and your driver's license. Well, we kind of like have a payment rail, which is like a credit card, and we have all your data, which is like a driver's license. So all those things that you do or you use your ID for, checking in at the airport or like getting on the bus or, going to the DMV, like it can range from, getting through the paywall at the Wall Street Journal to validating your ID to, getting on, an airplane, to selling your data to receive compensation, to get a VIP treatment at Marriott. There's so many different things that can happen. All of those services today are basically being run by somebody other than you. So, we've started here, but there's no shortage of stuff that we can work on. So we got a lot of work to do still, but I think the important part is that, the expensive years of this company are over. We've gotten to a point now where, look, this company makes money, is growing, and we've got Fortune 500 companies working with us. We don't see any change there happening. So it's just more about how.
This is where the consumer and the shareholder can also have an impact, right? I mean, if you love the service and you like what it does for you, then you tell all your friends, you tell your family, you get them protected, you get them managing their data, right? I mean, there are lots of ways to positively help this company have a bigger positive impact on the world, right? I mean, that's how things get huge, is when people share, right? I mean, you could be a brand ambassador for Reklaim. There's a lot of good things that can happen.
There's tons, and like there's things like maybe in the future you don't want to receive a compensation. Maybe in the future you'd like to receive Reklaim stock instead of compensation. There's tons of things. There's tons of different things that you can actually do here now that this mechanism has kind of been set up. So there's a lot of stuff that we've kind of got in the queue to build, but I do feel kind of bringing the consumer and the investor, kind of closer together is definitely kind of part of sort of the future of where we're going as Reklaim, for sure.
All right, Neil, listen, man, I want to thank you. Let's make sure that we don't have this big gap between our next one, right?
For sure. Well, I'm coming to Vegas in January, so hopefully you don't get COVID this year. We'll be able to meet up.
Yeah, that's a given. But you know what? When is your third quarter? When do you report your third?
First week in November.
All right. So maybe after you report, maybe we just do a quick follow-up. What do you think?
Absolutely. I'll put it on my calendar. I'll ping you once it comes out.
Okay, perfect. All right, Neil. Thanks. If anybody has any questions for you, they can reach you over at Reklaim, right? I mean, that's.
You bet.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm always working. Don't worry. I'll get back to you for sure.
All right, Neil. Thanks, man. Hold on one second. I'm gonna shut this off. You think I missed anything?
Nope, I
Okay.
think it's good.
All right, man. Hold on one second. Thank you for tuning in to another CEO interview here at Alpha Wolf Capital. Today we had CEO Neil Sweeney from Reklaim, ticker symbol MYIDF. I hope you enjoyed today's interview, and if you did, do us a favor, please give us a like. How about giving us a share? And while you're at it, make sure you smash that subscribe button. All of those things are extremely important to us over here at Alpha Wolf Capital, and we appreciate you taking the time to do that. Until next time, stay safe. Alpha Wolf Capital wishes you the very best of success.